A 16-year-old scholarship student, often overlooked and underestimated, is suddenly called to the front of the classroom by her teacher. She's handed a problem far beyond what anyone expects her to solve. Her classmates, some whispering, others sneering, watch with doubt. But what they don't realize is that the girl standing at the board is about to prove them all wrong. She's a hidden mathematical genius. Before we dive into this, let us know where you're watching from. Drop a comment below. The autumn morning light filtered through the tall windows of Prescott Academy, casting golden rectangles across the polished hardwood floors. The mathematics building, with its ivy-covered brick exterior and pristine white columns, stood as a monument to tradition and privilege, a place where generations of wealthy families had sent their children to receive the finest education money could buy. Jasmine Williams pulled her worn backpack higher on her shoulder as she hurried down the hallway, her sneakers squeaking softly against the gleaming floor. She was late. Not by much, just 5 minutes, but enough to draw attention as she slipped into advanced calculus, a class filled with students who had never known what it meant to wake up at 5 in the morning to take 2 buses across town. The classroom fell silent as she entered. 20 pairs of eyes turned toward her, taking in her thrift store clothes and the exhaustion etched into her features. Jasmine kept her gaze down, mumbling an apology as she made her way to her usual seat in the 3rd row near the window. "Miss Williams," came the crisp voice of Mr. Henry Harrison from the front of the room. "How kind of you to join us." "I'm sorry, Mr. Harrison," Jasmine said quietly, sliding into her chair. "The bus was delayed." Mr. Robert Harrison had ruled this domain for 23 years. His classroom walls displayed awards, commendations and photographs of students who'd gone on to Ivy League universities. After 27 years of teaching at Prescott Academy, he prided himself on his ability to identify potential, and he had long ago decided that Jasmine, despite her scholarship status, was simply out of her depth. "The bus," he repeated, as if the word itself was foreign. "Well, do try to leave earlier in the future. We've already begun reviewing the integration problems from last night's assignment." Jasmine Williams sat in the back corner, as she had every day since transferring from Jefferson Public 3 months ago. While other students arrived in luxury cars their parents bought them, Jasmine caught 2 buses, leaving home at 6:30 a.m. to make first period. Her backpack was worn but organized. Her notebooks were second-hand but meticulously kept. The scholarship letter in her file mentioned exceptional potential. But Mr. Harrison had his doubts. He'd seen transfer students before. They usually struggled to keep up with Prescott's rigorous pace. They usually didn't last long in advanced placement courses. What Mr. Harrison didn't know was that Jasmine had a secret. Every night after her shift at the grocery store, when her mother finally fell asleep from exhaustion after working double shifts as a home health aide, Jasmine would sit in their small apartment's kitchen. Under the dim light of a second-hand lamp, she'd open her laptop, a refurbished machine she'd saved months to buy. From 11 p.m. until 2 a.m., Jasmine disappeared into Stanford's open courseware. She worked through multivariable calculus problems that wouldn't appear in textbooks until graduate school. She mastered differential equations while her classmates complained about basic derivatives. She understood mathematical concepts that some of Mr. Harrison's former students struggled with in college. But she kept quiet. In a school where confidence was currency and pedigree was power, Jasmine had learned that being underestimated was safer than being targeted. Mr. Harrison interpreted her silence differently. He saw a student who rarely volunteered answers. He noticed how she didn't socialize with his top performers. He observed her worn sneakers and discount store clothes and made assumptions about her capabilities. "Scholarship kids," he'd mentioned to a colleague over coffee. "They mean well, but they're often in over their heads." The irony was devastating. While Mr. Harrison worried about Jasmine keeping up, she was actually 3 chapters ahead, working through problems he'd never assigned. While he questioned her preparation, she was teaching herself mathematics he couldn't teach. Her mother knew about the late-night studying. She'd find her asleep at the kitchen table, pencil still in hand, surrounded by equations that looked like a foreign language. She'd cover her with a blanket and whisper prayers for her future. "That girl's got something special," she'd tell her sister on their weekly phone calls. "I don't understand what she's doing with all them numbers, but I know it's important." She was right. But the system Jasmine had entered wasn't designed to recognize brilliance that came without privilege. It wasn't built to see potential that arrived on public transportation instead of in private cars. Mr. Harrison had developed what he called diagnostic teaching. When he suspected a student was struggling, he'd put them on the spot with challenging problems. It was his way of exposing weaknesses early, he claimed. Really, it was his way of confirming biases. Jasmine had become his favorite target for these diagnostic moments. "Let's see if you've been keeping up," he'd say, calling her to the board for problems slightly beyond the current lesson. He expected hesitation. He expected confusion. He expected confirmation that she didn't belong in his advanced class. Instead, Jasmine would solve them quietly and correctly, then return to her seat without fanfare. One Tuesday morning in late October, Mr. Harrison arrived with an unusual announcement. "Class, I've prepared a special exercise today," he said, distributing packets face down on each desk. "This is an assessment of your true understanding of calculus principles. You'll have 45 minutes. No textbooks, no notes, no calculators, just your mind and your pencil." A collective groan rose from the students. Olivia's face paled. Kyle shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Even the most confident students looked anxious. "This is worth 20% of your quarterly grade," Mr. Harrison continued. "I expect to see honest work that reflects your genuine comprehension." Jasmine's heart raced as she flipped over the packet. Her eyes scanned the first problem, then the second, then the third. A cold realization washed over her. These weren't standard advanced placement problems. These were undergraduate-level questions, some even approaching graduate-level complexity. She recognized several from her late-night studies, problems involving Laplace transforms, complex integration, and advanced differential equations. This wasn't a test, it was a trap. She glanced up at Mr. Harrison, who stood at the front of the room with his arms crossed, his eyes fixed directly on her. The message was clear. He wanted to expose her to prove she'd been cheating somehow, getting assistance she couldn't possibly access legitimately. Jasmine's hand trembled slightly as she picked up her pencil. Around her, students were already struggling, flipping through the pages with growing desperation. She could hear muttered curses, the sound of erasers working frantically against paper. She took a deep breath and began to write. The first problem involved integrating a complex exponential function with a logarithmic component. She recognized it immediately from a Stanford lecture she'd watched 3 weeks ago. Her pencil moved steadily, setting up the problem, identifying the appropriate substitution, executing the integration with precise steps. The second problem required knowledge of Fourier transforms. She'd studied this just last week, working through problem sets until 2 in the morning, while her mother slept after her shift. Problem after problem, her pencil moved with quiet confidence. She didn't rush, taking time to show her work clearly, to explain her reasoning in the margins. She wanted there to be no doubt about her understanding, no question about her methodology. 20 minutes passed, then 30. The room was filled with the sounds of frustration, sighs, the tapping of pencils, the rustle of pages being turned back and forth. Olivia had given up on problem 3. Kyle had his head in his hands. Marcus Chen stared at his paper with blank incomprehension. But Jasmine kept writing. At 35 minutes, she finished the last problem. She set down her pencil and quietly reviewed her work, checking for errors, ensuring every step was justified. Then she sat back, her hands folded on her desk, and waited. Mr. Harrison noticed immediately. His eyes narrowed as he watched her sitting calmly, while every other student continued to struggle. He walked slowly down the aisle, his footsteps deliberate, until he stood beside her desk. "You're finished, Miss Williams." His voice carried a note of disbelief. "Yes, sir," Jasmine said quietly. He picked up her packet, his eyes scanning the pages. She watched his expression shift from skepticism to confusion to something darker, anger mixed with accusation. "This is impossible," Mr. Harrison said, his voice low but sharp enough to cut through the concentration of the other students. Several looked up, sensing confrontation. "You couldn't have solved these problems in 35 minutes unless you'd seen them before." "But I have seen them before," Jasmine replied, keeping her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. "I've been studying advanced mathematics on my own. I've watched university lectures online, worked through textbooks from the library." "You expect me to believe," Mr. Harrison said, his words measured and cold, "that a 16-year-old scholarship student has been independently studying graduate-level mathematics, that you've somehow taught yourself material that takes most college students years to master?" The classroom had fallen completely silent now. Every student was watching, waiting to see what would happen. Jasmine felt 20 pairs of eyes on her, could hear the unspoken questions. How dare she? Who does she think she is? It's the truth, sir, Jasmine said, meeting his gaze directly for the first time. I can prove it, Mr. Harrison's jaw tightened. He closed the packet and tucked it under his arm. Come with me, he said. Now. He strode toward the door without waiting for her response. Jasmine gathered her belongings with shaking hands and followed, acutely aware of the whispers that erupted behind her. She totally cheated, she heard Alexandra say. I knew something was off about her, Marcus added. Mr. Harrison led her out of the classroom, leaving the other students whispering behind them, and marched her directly to the principal's office. Principal Robert Martinez looked up in surprise as they entered, Mr. Harrison still clutching Jasmine's quiz paper. Henry, what's going on? I need to file a formal academic integrity violation, Mr. Harrison said, placing the paper on the principal's desk. This student has been consistently performing at an impossible level. I believe she's been receiving unauthorized assistance. Principal Martinez, a stern man in his 50s who had spent his entire career in private education, picked up the paper and examined it. His eyebrows rose as he read through Jasmine's solutions. These are quite advanced, he said slowly. Exactly my point, Mr. Harrison said. No 16-year-old could solve these problems without help. I didn't cheat, Jasmine said, her voice stronger now, despite the fear coursing through her. I've been teaching myself, I can prove it. Principal Martinez looked at her for a long moment. Miss Williams, these are very serious accusations. If Mr. Harrison is correct, you could be expelled. However, if you can demonstrate that you've been working independently, he trailed off, then reached for his phone. Let me make a call. What Jasmine didn't know, what neither Mr. Harrison nor Principal Martinez knew, was that her name had already caught the attention of someone who mattered. For months Jasmine had been active on several online mathematics forums under an anonymous username, solving problems, discussing theories, and helping other students. Her insights had been consistently brilliant, her approaches novel and elegant. One person who had noticed was Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a mathematics professor at Stanford University and a renowned researcher in number theory. Dr. Rodriguez made it a habit to follow promising young mathematicians online, and the user known as Night Owl Math had caught her attention months ago. It had taken some careful investigation, but Dr. Rodriguez had eventually traced the username back to Jasmine Williams, a scholarship student at Prescott Academy. She had been quietly monitoring Jasmine's progress ever since, waiting for the right moment to reach out. When Principal Martinez's call reached the Stanford Mathematics Department that afternoon, asking if anyone could verify the capabilities of a student named Jasmine Williams, Dr. Rodriguez was in her office, and she immediately volunteered to help. I'll be there tomorrow morning, she told Principal Martinez. And I can assure you, Mr. Martinez, that Jasmine Williams is exactly who she claims to be, and more. The next morning, Jasmine arrived at school to find a summons to the principal's office. Her stomach churned with anxiety as she made her way through the hallways, aware of the curious stares from other students. Word had spread that something was happening with the scholarship girl in advanced calculus. When she entered the office, she found Principal Martinez, Mr. Harrison, and a woman she didn't recognize, a striking Latina woman in her 40s with kind eyes and an air of quiet authority. Jasmine, Principal Martinez said, gesturing to a chair, please sit down. This is Dr. Elena Rodriguez from Stanford University. She's here to help us resolve this situation. Dr. Rodriguez smiled warmly. Hello, Jasmine, or should I say Night Owl Math. Jasmine's eyes widened. You know, I've been following your work online for months, Dr. Rodriguez said. Your solution to the Goldbach-related problem last month was particularly elegant. And your approach to that topology question was unlike anything I've seen from a professional mathematician, let alone a high school student. Mr. Harrison shifted uncomfortably. Dr. Rodriguez, with all due respect, online forums are hardly proof of what, Mr. Harrison? Dr. Rodriguez's voice remained pleasant, but there was steel underneath. Of genuine mathematical ability. I've reviewed Jasmine's work extensively. I've seen her solve problems in real time, watched her explain complex concepts to others, observed her make connections that most graduate students would miss. She turned to Principal Martinez. I understand there are concerns about academic integrity. I propose a simple solution, a test. A test, Principal Martinez asked. Yes, I'll create 3 problems myself, one from analysis, one from linear algebra, and one from differential equations, all at the graduate level. Jasmine will solve them here now, with all of us watching. No notes, no resources, no help. If she can do it, you'll have your proof. Mr. Harrison's jaw tightened, and if she can't, then you'll have your answer as well. Dr. Rodriguez said simply. She looked at Jasmine. Are you willing to try? Jasmine's heart was pounding. This was it, the moment when everything would either fall apart or come together. She thought of her mother, working double shifts to keep their lights on. She thought of all those nights at the kitchen table, losing herself in mathematics because it was the one place where her background didn't matter, where only logic and reason ruled. Yes, she said. I'll do it, doctor. Rodriguez pulled out a notepad and spent several minutes writing, her pen moving with careful precision. When she finished, she tore out 3 pages and handed them to Jasmine, along with several sheets of blank paper and a pencil. Take your time, she said gently. Show your work clearly. Jasmine looked down at the first problem. It was a complex analysis question involving contour integration, something she had studied late at night using videos from MIT's OpenCourseWare. She picked up the pencil and began to write. The room fell silent, except for the scratch of pencil on paper. Principal Martinez and Mr. Harrison watched intently while Dr. Rodriguez observed with a small knowing smile. The first problem took Jasmine 15 minutes. She worked methodically, setting up the contour, identifying the poles, calculating the residues, and arriving at the final answer. She moved on to the second problem, a linear algebra question about eigenvalues and eigenvectors in a complex vector space. Her hand moved steadily, confidently, as she reduced the matrix and found the characteristic polynomial. The third problem was the most difficult, a differential equation with boundary conditions that required a clever substitution to solve. Jasmine stared at it for a moment, her mind racing through possibilities. Then she saw it, the transformation that would make everything work. Her pencil began to move again, faster now, as the solution unfolded before her. 45 minutes after she had started, Jasmine set down her pencil and looked up. I'm finished. Dr. Rodriguez took the papers and examined them carefully, her eyes moving over each line of work. Her expression remained neutral, giving nothing away. The silence stretched on, oppressive and heavy. Finally, Dr. Rodriguez looked up, and she was smiling. Perfect, she said simply. All 3 solutions are completely correct. More than that, they're elegant. The substitution you used in the differential equation problem, that's not the standard approach. It's more efficient, better. Principal Martinez let out a long breath. So she really taught herself. Yes, Dr. Rodriguez confirmed. Jasmine Williams is a genuine mathematical prodigy, Mr. Martinez. The kind of student who comes along perhaps once in a generation. Mr. Harrison had gone very pale. He stared at the papers in Dr. Rodriguez's hands as if they were physical proof of his own blindness. He began, then stopped. For the first time since Jasmine had entered his classroom 6 months ago, he seemed at a loss for words. Dr. Rodriguez turned to Jasmine. I need to apologize to you, Jasmine. If I had known what was happening here, I would have intervened sooner. What you've accomplished on your own, with no mentorship, no resources, no support, it's extraordinary. Most students with access to the best schools and tutors in the world couldn't do what you've done. Thank you, Jasmine said quietly, still processing what had just happened. Principal Martinez cleared his throat. It seems we owe you an apology as well, Miss Williams. There will be no disciplinary action, of course. Your record will show no mention of this incident. Furthermore, Dr. Rodriguez added, I'd like to invite you to participate in Stanford's summer mathematics program. It's typically for undergraduate and graduate students, but I think you're more than ready. Full scholarship, of course, including room and board. Jasmine felt tears prick her eyes. Really, and Jasmine, this is just the beginning. With your talent, properly nurtured, there's no limit to what you can achieve. After Principal Martinez dismissed her, and before Dr. Rodriguez left for her flight back to California, the professor asked to speak with Jasmine privately. They walked together through the quiet hallways of Prescott Academy, past the portraits of distinguished alumni and trophy cases filled with awards. Jasmine, Dr. Rodriguez began, her voice gentle but serious. I want you to understand something about what lies ahead. Stanford's summer program will be challenging, not just academically, but in ways you might not expect. Jasmine looked at her, uncertainty flickering across her face. What do you mean? Dr. Rodriguez stopped walking and turned to face her directly. You'll be surrounded by students who have had every advantage: private tutors, prep courses, connections. Some of them will look at you and see your background before they see your talent. You'll have moments when you doubt yourself, when you wonder if you really belong there. I already feel that way here, Jasmine admitted quietly. I know, but here's what I need you to remember. Your journey to this point, teaching yourself, working in isolation, pushing forward without support, that makes you stronger, not weaker. The fact that you developed your mathematical intuition independently means you think differently, more creatively, than students who've been spoon-fed solutions their entire lives. Dr. Rodriguez reached into her bag and pulled out a worn paperback book. This is my copy of Polya's How to Solve It. I carried it with me through graduate school. I want you to have it. She pressed the book into Jasmine's hands. When you doubt yourself, and you will, remember that mathematical talent isn't about where you come from. It's about how you think, how you see patterns, how you connect ideas, and you, Jasmine Williams, have that gift. Jasmine held the book carefully, feeling the weight of more than just paper and ink. What if I fail? What if I get there and I can't keep up? Then you'll learn from it and try again, Dr. Rodriguez said simply. But I don't think that's going to happen. I've been watching you for months, Jasmine. I've seen how you approach problems, how you help others understand concepts, how you push yourself beyond the boundaries of what you've been taught. That's not something that can be purchased or inherited. That's pure intellectual fire. She paused, her expression growing more serious. But I won't lie to you. The summer program will expose you to a world you haven't experienced before. You'll see wealth and privilege on a scale that might make you uncomfortable. Some students will arrive with recommendation letters from Nobel laureates. Others will have parents who are themselves distinguished mathematicians. You might feel like an outsider. I already am an outsider, Jasmine said, a hint of bitterness creeping into her voice. No, Dr. Rodriguez corrected firmly. You're a pioneer. There's a difference. An outsider is someone who doesn't belong. A pioneer is someone who's forging a new path, showing others it can be done. She placed a hand on Jasmine's shoulder. I was the first person in my family to go to college. I know what it feels like to walk into rooms where everyone seems to speak a language you're still learning. But I also know that the perspective you bring, the hunger, the determination, the ability to find joy in learning for its own sake, that's invaluable. Jasmine felt something loosen in her chest. Will you be there? At the program, I'll be teaching 2 of the seminar sessions, Dr. Rodriguez confirmed. And my door is always open. But Jasmine, I don't want to be your only lifeline. I want you to build connections with other students, find mentors among the faculty, create your own support network. Can you promise me you'll try to do that? I'll try, Jasmine said, though her voice wavered with uncertainty. That's all I ask. Dr. Rodriguez smiled. Now, let's talk logistics. The program starts in 6 weeks. You'll need to arrange transportation to Palo Alto, and we'll need to sort out some paperwork for the scholarship. I'll have my assistant reach out to you about the details. As Dr. Rodriguez prepared to leave, she turned back one more time. Jasmine, one last thing, don't hide your light anymore. I know it's been safer to stay invisible, but the world needs to see what you can do. Not for their sake, for the sake of every other student out there who thinks their circumstances disqualify them from excellence. You're proof that they're wrong. After Dr. Rodriguez left, Mr. Harrison asked Jasmine to stay for a moment. They stood in the empty hallway outside the principal's office, the sound of distant classroom chatter echoing around them. Mr. Harrison looked older somehow, the lines in his face deeper than they had been that morning. Miss Williams, he began, then stopped. He removed his glasses and cleaned them with his handkerchief, a nervous gesture Jasmine had never seen him make before. I need to apologize to you. What I did, what I assumed was inexcusable. You thought I was cheating, Jasmine said quietly. Yes, and I was wrong. Completely wrong. He put his glasses back on and looked at her directly. I've been teaching for 27 years, and in that time I've prided myself on recognizing talent. But I let my assumptions blind me. I looked at you and saw your background, your circumstances, and I let that determine what I thought you were capable of. You're not the only one, Jasmine said, thinking of all the small dismissals, the subtle condescension she had faced since arriving at Prescott. Perhaps not, but I should have known better. I'm a teacher, my job is to nurture talent, not stifle it. He paused. I want you to know that I will do everything in my power to support you from now on. If you need recommendations, resources, anything, you have my full backing. It wasn't enough, not really. 6 months of being doubted, of being made to feel like an imposter, couldn't be erased by one apology. But it was a start. Thank you, Mr. Harrison, Jasmine said. The 6 weeks before the Stanford program felt simultaneously too long and too short. Jasmine threw herself into preparation, working through problem sets from advanced textbooks, reviewing topics she felt shaky on, and trying to quiet the voice in her head that whispered she wasn't ready. Her mother noticed the change in her. One evening, as Jasmine sat at the kitchen table surrounded by books and papers, her mother set down a cup of tea and sat across from her. "Baby, you've been working yourself to the bone," she said gently. "When was the last time you took a break?" "I can't, Mom," Jasmine said without looking up. "The program starts in 3 weeks, and I need to make sure I'm ready. These students, they've been preparing for this their whole lives. I'm just catching up." Her mother reached across the table and covered Jasmine's hand with her own. "Listen to me. You got into this program because someone who knows what she's talking about saw your talent. Not your work ethic, not your determination, your talent. That's something you already have. You don't need to earn it. But what if I get there and I'm not good enough?" Jasmine's voice cracked slightly. "What if they realize they made a mistake? Then they're fools," her mother said firmly. "But that's not going to happen. You know why? Because you've already proven yourself. You taught yourself calculus at a kitchen table while I was working nights. You solved problems that stumped students who've had every advantage. You belong there, Jasmine. You've always belonged there." Jasmine felt tears sting her eyes. "I'm scared, Mom." "I know, baby, but being scared doesn't mean you're not ready. It just means you're about to do something important." Her mother squeezed her hand. "I'm so proud of you. Your grandmother would be proud too." The mention of her grandmother, who had worked as a domestic worker her entire life, who had barely finished elementary school, but had taught herself to read by poring over discarded newspapers, made Jasmine's throat tighten. She thought about all the women in her family who had dreamed of opportunities they never received, who had sacrificed so that the next generation might have more. "I won't let you down," Jasmine whispered. "You couldn't," her mother said. "Not ever." The day Jasmine left for Stanford arrived bright and clear. Her mother had taken the day off work, a rarity, to drive her to the airport. As they loaded Jasmine's single suitcase into the trunk of their old sedan, Jasmine felt a mixture of excitement and terror so intense it made her nauseous. "You have everything?" her mother asked for the 3rd time. "Clothes, toiletries, your laptop." "I have everything," Jasmine assured her. "Mom, you didn't have to take off work for this. The bus would have been fine." "The bus," her mother scoffed. "My daughter is going to Stanford, and you think I'm putting her on a bus? Not a chance." During the drive to the airport, they talked about practical things, how often Jasmine should call, whether she needed to open a bank account in California, what to do if she got sick. But underneath the logistics, there was an emotional current neither of them quite knew how to navigate. At the airport, her mother hugged her tightly. "You call me when you land. And Jasmine, remember who you are. Don't let anyone make you feel small." "I won't," Jasmine promised, though she wasn't sure she could keep it. As the plane lifted off, Jasmine pressed her forehead against the window and watched her city grow smaller below her. Everything she knew, everything familiar, was falling away. She was flying towards something entirely unknown, and for the first time in her life, she couldn't solve her way through it with equations and logic. She pulled out Dr. Rodriguez's book and opened to a random page. A passage had been underlined in faded ink. "If you can't solve a problem, then there is an easier problem you can solve. Find it." Jasmine closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "One step at a time," she told herself. "One problem at a time." The Stanford campus was more beautiful than Jasmine had imagined. Palm trees swayed against impossibly blue skies, and the sandstone buildings glowed golden in the afternoon sun. Students biked past on expensive bicycles, their laughter carrying on the warm breeze. Everything felt sun-drenched and prosperous, a world away from the cramped apartment and struggling neighborhoods she had left behind. The summer program housing was in a residence hall near the mathematics building. As Jasmine dragged her suitcase down the hallway, looking for her room number, she passed open doors, revealing spaces already personalized with photos, posters, and expensive bedding. Her own room, when she found it, was stark and institutional. A narrow bed, a desk, a closet. Her roommate hadn't arrived yet. Jasmine unpacked her modest belongings, acutely aware of how little space they took up. No decorations, no extra clothes, just the essentials. She was hanging up her last shirt when a voice came from the doorway. "Hey, you must be my roommate, I'm Sophie Zhang." Jasmine turned to see a petite Asian girl with bright eyes and an infectious smile, standing behind a mountain of luggage that looked like it contained the contents of an entire bedroom. "Jasmine Williams," she replied, trying to match Sophie's enthusiasm. "Oh my God, you're already unpacked. I'm so jealous. I'm the world's worst packer. I literally brought everything I own." Sophie wheeled in a designer suitcase that probably cost more than Jasmine's entire wardrobe. "So where are you from? What's your focus area?" "I'm from East Palo Alto," Jasmine said, deliberately naming a nearby city rather than explaining she had flown in from across the country. "I'm interested in number theory and analysis." "Cool. I'm from San Francisco. My dad's a venture capitalist, and my mom teaches at Berkeley, so I've basically grown up around Stanford. Number theory is brutal, super respect for that. I'm more of an applied math person myself. Computational stuff." As Sophie unpacked, filling their shared space with expensive electronics, designer clothes, and framed photos of exotic vacations, Jasmine felt herself shrinking. This was a mistake, the voice in her head whispered. "You don't belong here." But she pushed the thought away and forced herself to engage. "How long have you been studying advanced mathematics?" "Oh, since I was like 12. My parents got me a tutor when I showed some aptitude, and I've been doing summer programs at various universities ever since. This is actually my third time at Stanford." Sophie hung up a photo of herself standing in front of the Eiffel Tower. "What about you? Did you do MathPath or Math Camp?" Jasmine had never heard of either program. "No, I mostly studied on my own." "Wow, self-taught, that's hardcore." Sophie paused, seeming to really see Jasmine for the first time. "Hey, you should totally come with me to the welcome reception tonight. I can introduce you to some people I know from previous summers. It really helps to have connections here." "Thanks," Jasmine said, though the thought of networking at a reception made her stomach turn. "I'd appreciate that." The welcome reception was held in a large common room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the campus. About 60 students milled around, helping themselves to catered food, and introducing themselves to one another. Jasmine stood near the wall, clutching a plate of appetizers she wasn't eating, watching the easy way these students interacted with each other. Sophie had disappeared into the crowd almost immediately, greeting friends with enthusiastic hugs. Around Jasmine, conversations flowed about prep schools she'd never heard of, professors whose names she didn't recognize, and summer programs that cost more than her mother made in a year. "First time at Stanford?" a voice asked beside her. Jasmine turned to find a tall boy with curly hair and an easy smile. "Is it that obvious?" "Only because I remember feeling exactly like you look right now during my first summer program," he said. "I'm David Chen, third-year undergraduate at MIT, here for Dr. Rodriguez's seminar on algebraic number theory." "Jasmine Williams, high school, also here for Dr. Rodriguez's seminar." David's eyebrows rose. "High school, impressive. She doesn't usually take students who haven't at least completed undergraduate coursework." "You must be seriously talented, or seriously lucky," Jasmine said. "I doubt luck has much to do with it." David grabbed a spring roll from the buffet table. "So what's your mathematical background? Did you come up through the competition circuit?" "Not exactly," Jasmine said carefully. "I'm more of an independent study person." "Self-taught." David looked genuinely interested. "That's actually really cool. Sometimes I think the traditional path can be limiting. You probably approach problems from completely different angles than the rest of us." Before Jasmine could respond, Dr. Rodriguez appeared at the front of the room and called for everyone's attention. The room quieted as the students turned to face her. "Welcome everyone, to Stanford's Advanced Mathematics Summer Institute," Dr. Rodriguez began. "You're here because you've demonstrated exceptional talent and passion for mathematics. Over the next 8 weeks you'll be challenged in ways you may not have experienced before. You'll work with some of the finest mathematicians in the world, collaborate with brilliant peers, and push the boundaries of your understanding." Her eyes scanned the room, and Jasmine felt them pause on her for just a moment. "I want to be clear about something, Dr. Rodriguez continued, her voice carrying authority and warmth in equal measure. "This program is not about competition. It's not about proving you're smarter than the person next to you. It's about deepening your love of mathematics, expanding your toolkit, and learning to think like a research mathematician. Some of you will struggle with material that comes easily to others. Some of you will excel in areas where others falter. That's not just okay, it's expected. Mathematics is vast, and each of you brings unique strengths to this community." Jasmine felt some of the tension in her shoulders ease slightly. "Tomorrow morning, we'll begin with diagnostic assessments, not to rank you, but to help us understand where each of you is in your mathematical journey, so we can support you appropriately. Tonight just get to know each other, find your people. Mathematics can be isolating, but it doesn't have to be." After the speech, as students began to disperse, Dr. Rodriguez made her way through the crowd toward Jasmine. "How are you settling in?" "It's a lot," Jasmine admitted honestly. "I know, walk with me for a moment." Dr. Rodriguez led her out onto a quiet terrace overlooking the campus. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "I want to check in with you before classes start. How are you really feeling?" Jasmine was quiet for a moment, then decided honesty was the only option. "Terrified. Everyone here seems so confident, so prepared. They all know each other from other programs. They talk about things I've never even heard of. I feel like I'm starting a race 3 steps behind everyone else." "Do you remember what I told you about being a pioneer?" Dr. Rodriguez asked gently. "Yes, that feeling you have right now, that discomfort, that sense of being out of place, that's the feeling of growth. If you walked into this program feeling completely comfortable and confident, it would mean you weren't being challenged enough." She turned to face Jasmine directly. "I'm not going to tell you it will be easy because it won't, but I will tell you this, I chose you for this program, not in spite of your background, but because of what you've accomplished within it. The mathematical maturity you've developed working independently is rare and valuable. But what if you can't keep up?" Dr. Rodriguez finished. "Jasmine, I've been teaching for 20 years, I can recognize mathematical talent. More importantly, I can recognize mathematical potential. You have both. Will there be moments when you feel lost? Yes. Will there be concepts that take you longer to grasp than you'd like? Probably. Will any of that mean you don't belong here? Absolutely not." Jasmine nodded, trying to absorb the words. "Here's what I want you to do," Dr. Rodriguez said. "Tomorrow during the diagnostic assessments, I want you to approach each problem with curiosity rather than fear. Don't worry about what anyone else is doing. Just engage with the mathematics. Can you do that?" "I can try, that's all any of us can do." Dr. Rodriguez smiled. "Now go get some rest. Tomorrow is a big day." The diagnostic assessments the next morning were exactly as challenging as Jasmine had feared. The problems ranged across multiple areas of mathematics: real analysis, abstract algebra, topology, number theory, combinatorics. Some she recognized and could tackle immediately, others required her to think deeply, to make connections she hadn't made before. Around her, students worked with varying degrees of confidence. Some flew through the early problems, their pencils moving rapidly. Others stared at the pages with furrowed brows, occasionally erasing and starting over. Jasmine tried to focus on her own work, but she couldn't help noticing when students around her flipped to the final pages, while she was still working through the middle sections. There was one problem in particular, a question about manifolds and differential geometry, that completely stumped her. She had never studied topology formally, and the terminology was foreign. After 20 minutes of trying different approaches, she finally admitted defeat and moved on, leaving the page blank except for a few tentative notes. When time was called, Jasmine felt a mixture of relief and disappointment. She had solved most of the problems, she thought, but not all, and most might not be good enough here. Over lunch, she sat with Sophie and a few other students her roommate had introduced her to. The conversation inevitably turned to the assessment. "That topology section was brutal," said Marcus Kim, a student from Phillips Exeter Academy. "I mean, I've taken a semester of topology, but some of those questions were graduate level." "Really?" Sophie looked surprised. "I thought they were pretty standard. We covered most of that material in my independent study last year." Jasmine stayed quiet, pushing food around her plate. "What did you think, Jasmine?" Sophie asked, including her in the conversation. "It was challenging," Jasmine said, carefully. "I haven't studied topology formally." "Oh," Sophie's expression shifted to something like sympathy. "That must have been tough. Did you just skip that section?" "Mostly." There was an awkward pause, and Jasmine felt the judgment, however unintentional. These students had been groomed for this their entire lives, while she was scrambling to catch up. The rest of the first week passed in a blur of lectures, problem sets and seminars. Jasmine attended every session, took copious notes, and spent her evenings in the library working through the material. Some things came easily. The number theory seminar felt like coming home, and she found herself contributing to discussions with growing confidence. But other areas, particularly the more abstract topics, required her to work harder than she ever had before. Dr. Rodriguez's seminar on algebraic number theory was the highlight of each week. In those sessions, Jasmine felt the same spark she had experienced during her late-night independent study, the thrill of elegant proofs, the satisfaction of seeing patterns emerge from chaos. Dr. Rodriguez had a gift for explanation, building complex ideas from simple foundations, and Jasmine found herself completely absorbed. After the third seminar, Dr. Rodriguez asked Jasmine to stay behind. "I wanted to talk to you about your work on the problem set from last week." Jasmine's stomach dropped. "Was it wrong?" "Wrong. No, it was excellent. In fact, your approach to the third problem was more elegant than the standard solution. I wanted to ask if you'd be willing to present it to the class next week." "Present? In front of everyone?" "Yes. I think the other students would benefit from seeing your method. It's creative and insightful, exactly the kind of thinking I want to encourage." Jasmine felt panic rising. "I don't know if I'm ready for that." "Why not?" Dr. Rodriguez's question was gentle but direct. "Because, what if I can't explain it properly? What if people ask questions I can't answer? Then you say I don't know, and we work through it together." "Jasmine, mathematics is a collaborative discipline. The sooner you become comfortable sharing your ideas, even imperfect ones, the more you'll grow." Dr. Rodriguez paused. "I'm not going to force you, but I hope you'll consider it." That night, Jasmine lay awake in her narrow dorm bed, listening to Sophie's soft breathing from across the room. The presentation felt like an impossible task. Standing in front of these brilliant privileged students and explaining her work seemed like asking for humiliation. But another part of her, the part that had spent countless nights teaching herself mathematics because she loved it, not because anyone expected her to, wanted to try. Wanted to share the beautiful solution she had found, the elegant way the pieces fit together. The next morning, she found Dr. Rodriguez before class. "I'll do the presentation." Dr. Rodriguez smiled. "I'm glad, and Jasmine, you're going to be great." Preparing for the presentation consumed Jasmine's free time over the following days. She wrote out her solution multiple times, practiced explaining each step, anticipated potential questions. Sophie, to her credit, offered to be a practice audience and sat through 3 run-throughs, offering suggestions about pacing and clarity. "You really know your stuff," Sophie said after the final practice. "I mean, I knew you were smart, but seeing you break this down, it's impressive. Where did you learn to think like this?" "I taught myself," Jasmine said simply. Sophie was quiet for a moment. "I've had tutors and programs my whole life, and I don't think I could have come up with that solution. There's something different about the way you approach problems. It's like, more creative or something. It was the first time Jasmine had heard her background framed as an advantage rather than a deficit, and something in her chest loosened slightly. The day of the presentation arrived. As Jasmine stood at the front of the seminar room, looking out at 20 expectant faces, her mouth went dry. These were some of the brightest mathematics students in the country, and she was about to explain her work to them. Dr. Rodriguez gave her an encouraging nod from the back of the room. Jasmine took a deep breath and began. So the problem asked us to prove that the ring of integers in a certain number field has a specific property, she started, her voice shaky at first but growing stronger. The standard approach would be to use the theory of ideals and work through a series of technical lemmas. But I noticed something about the structure of this particular field that suggested a different path. As she worked through her solution on the board, something remarkable happened. She forgot about her audience. She forgot about her nerves. She was simply explaining something beautiful, showing how the pieces fit together in an unexpected way. When she finished, there was a moment of silence. Then David Chen raised his hand. That substitution you made in the third step, how did you see that? I never would have thought to approach it that way. I was thinking about a similar problem I'd seen in an online forum, Jasmine explained. Someone had used a related technique, and I wondered if it would apply here. More questions followed, but they weren't challenges, they were genuine curiosity. Students wanted to understand her reasoning, wanted to see the connections she had made. Dr. Rodriguez occasionally interjected to highlight particularly clever steps or to connect Jasmine's approach to broader themes in number theory. When the seminar ended, several students approached Jasmine to continue the discussion. Marcus, who had seemed so intimidating at first, said, "That was really cool. I never would have thought to draw that connection. Mind if I borrow your notes?" For the first time since arriving at Stanford, Jasmine felt like she might actually belong here. But success came with its own pressures. As the program progressed, Jasmine found herself working harder than ever. While some material came naturally, other topics required intense effort. She spent long hours in the library, often working until the early morning hours, trying to master concepts that seemed to come more easily to students who had formal training. One evening, 3 weeks into the program, she was struggling with a particularly difficult problem set on functional analysis. The concepts felt slippery, hard to grasp, and after 4 hours of work, she had barely made progress on the first problem. She put her head down on the desk, feeling tears of frustration prick her eyes. Maybe she really wasn't good enough. Maybe everyone else was right, and she was just a charity case, someone who had gotten lucky but lacked the foundation to really succeed. "Rough night?" a voice asked. Jasmine looked up to find David settling into the chair across from her, his own stack of books in hand. "You could say that, functional analysis problem set?" he asked, noticing her textbook. She nodded miserably. "Yeah, I spent like 6 hours on those problems yesterday. That stuff is brutal." He pulled out his own work. "Want to work through them together? Sometimes talking through problems helps." "I don't want to slow you down," Jasmine said. "Are you kidding? You explained that number theory concept to me last week that I'd been stuck on for days. I'm pretty sure I owe you one." David opened his notebook. "Plus I find that when I have to explain something to someone else, it helps me understand it better. So really you'd be doing me a favor." They worked together for the next 2 hours, trading insights and asking questions. David had a stronger background in analysis, but Jasmine's creative problem-solving often led to shortcuts he hadn't considered. By the time the library closed, they had completed most of the problem set, and Jasmine felt a renewed sense of confidence. "Thanks for that," she said as they packed up their things. "Any time, you know we should start a study group. A few of us have been meeting on Thursday nights, just working on problem sets together, helping each other out. You should join us." "Really? Yeah, really. You're one of the strongest students in the program, Jasmine. I know you don't always see it, but the rest of us do." The study group became a lifeline. Every Thursday night, Jasmine met with David, a girl named Priya from UC Berkeley, and a quiet boy named James from Caltech. They worked through problems together, debated solutions, and shared strategies. For the first time, Jasmine felt like she had peers, not competitors, but collaborators. Dr. Rodriguez noticed the change in Jasmine during their weekly one-on-one meetings. "You seem more comfortable," she observed. "More settled." "I am," Jasmine admitted. "I think I'm finally starting to believe I belong here." "Good, because I have something I want to discuss with you." Dr. Rodriguez pulled out a folder. "There's a mathematics competition at the state level happening in 2 months, the California Mathematics Championship. It's one of the most prestigious high school competitions in the country, and the winner receives a scholarship of $50,000 plus automatic consideration for several university honors programs." Jasmine's eyes widened. $50,000. "Yes, I think you should compete. But I'm not from California. I'm just here for the summer. The competition is open to any high school student who's a California resident at the time of the competition, which you will be, since the program runs through late August and the competition is in September. We can arrange for you to extend your stay." Jasmine's mind raced. $50,000 would change everything. It would mean her mother wouldn't have to work double shifts, would mean college tuition wouldn't be such an impossible burden. But the thought of competing against the best mathematics students in California was terrifying. "I don't know if I'm ready," she said. "Jasmine, you're more than ready. In fact, I think you have a very good chance of winning." Dr. Rodriguez leaned forward. "But more than that, I think this competition could be transformative for you. Not just because of the money, although that certainly doesn't hurt, but because winning would prove to yourself, and to everyone else, that your talent is real and recognized. What if I fail? Then you'll have gained valuable experience, and you'll try again." Dr. Rodriguez smiled. "But I don't think you're going to fail." The decision weighed heavily on Jasmine. That night, she called her mother and explained the situation. "Baby, this sounds like an incredible opportunity," her mother said. "But it's your choice. What does your gut tell you?" "My gut is terrified." Her mother laughed. "That's normal, but underneath the fear, what do you want?" Jasmine thought about it. Underneath the fear was a spark of excitement, a desire to test herself, to see how far she could go. "I want to try." "Then try, and know that whether you win or lose, I'm proud of you. You've already accomplished more than I ever dreamed possible." After hanging up, Jasmine found Dr. Rodriguez's email and typed out a message. "I'll do the competition." The response came within minutes. "I knew you would. Let's start preparing." The next 6 weeks were intense. In addition to her regular coursework, Jasmine spent hours each day preparing for the competition. Dr. Rodriguez provided her with past competition problems, techniques for working under time pressure, and strategies for tackling unfamiliar material. The study group rallied around her, helping her practice and offering encouragement. "You're going to destroy this thing," Priya said confidently after Jasmine completed a practice test in record time. "Seriously, I've never seen anyone solve problems as fast as you do once you see the pattern." But doubt continued to creep in during quiet moments. Jasmine would lie awake at night, wondering if she was setting herself up for public humiliation. What if she froze during the competition? What if her self-taught background left gaps that would be exposed under pressure? Sophie noticed her roommate's anxiety. "You know what helps me before big competitions?" she asked one evening. "Remembering why I love math in the first place, not because of prizes or recognition, but because it's beautiful. If you go into that competition remembering that you love this stuff, the rest will follow." It was surprisingly good advice. The California Mathematics Championship took place on a Saturday morning in early September at UCLA's campus. Jasmine woke up at dawn, her stomach churning with nerves. She had barely slept, her mind cycling through problem-solving strategies and formulas. Dr. Rodriguez picked her up from the dorm at 7. "How are you feeling?" "Like I might throw up," Jasmine admitted. "That's normal, but remember what we've practiced. Read each problem carefully, start with what you know, and don't get stuck on any single question. You have 4 hours, use them wisely." The competition venue was a massive lecture hall filled with desks, each numbered and equipped with scratch paper and pencils. Students filed in wearing everything from private school uniforms to casual clothes. Jasmine spotted several students she recognized from mathematics forums and summer programs. These were the elite, the ones who had been training for competitions like this their entire lives. She found her seat, number 47, and tried to steady her breathing. This was it. Everything she had worked for, All those late nights at the kitchen table, all the time she had chosen mathematics over sleep or socializing, had led to this moment. The proctor, a stern-looking professor, gave final instructions. You have 4 hours to complete 12 problems. The problems increase in difficulty. Show all your work. You may begin, now. Jasmine opened the test booklet, and the familiar comfort of mathematics washed over her. The first problem was a geometric proof, elegant and straightforward. She solved it quickly, her hand moving with confidence. The second problem involved polynomial equations. She recognized the pattern immediately. By the fifth problem she had found her rhythm. The nerves were still there, humming beneath the surface, but they were manageable now. She was in her element, doing what she loved. The problems grew progressively harder. Number 7 required a clever use of modular arithmetic. Number 9 demanded deep insight into prime factorization. But Jasmine worked methodically, drawing on everything she had learned from her independent study, from the summer program, from years of wrestling with mathematics in solitude. She reached problem 12 with 90 minutes remaining. This was the legendary killer problem, the one designed to separate the truly exceptional from the merely excellent. It involved a complex interaction between number theory and combinatorics, asking for a proof that seemed to require techniques from multiple domains. Jasmine stared at it, her mind initially blank. Around her, she could hear other students sighing, flipping back to earlier problems, giving up on this final challenge. Then she saw it, not the full solution, but a thread, a tiny connection between the number theoretic condition and a combinatorial identity she had studied months ago in an online forum. She pulled on that thread, and slowly, beautifully, the solution began to unravel. Her pencil moved faster now, the proof building step by step. She made a substitution, applied a lemma, invoked a theorem. The pieces were falling into place, the argument crystallizing from chaos into perfect logical order. When she wrote the final line, therefore, the statement is proven, and circled it with satisfaction, she had 30 minutes remaining. She used that time to review every solution, checking calculations, verifying logic, ensuring clarity. When the proctor called time, Jasmine set down her pencil with a profound sense of completion. She had given everything she had. The mathematics had been beautiful. Whatever happened next, she had done her best. The results were announced 2 weeks later at a ceremony held at Prescott Academy. Principal Martinez had insisted on hosting it, wanting to celebrate their scholarship students' achievement publicly. The mathematics department attended, along with Mr. Harrison, many students, and to Jasmine's joy and surprise, her mother, who had taken a rare day off to be there. Dr. Rodriguez stood at the podium, having flown in specifically for the announcement. It's my great honor to announce the results of the California Mathematics Championship. This year, for the first time in 15 years, we have a perfect score. Not only did this student solve all 12 problems correctly, but the solutions demonstrated remarkable creativity and insight. Jasmine's heart was pounding so hard she thought everyone must be able to hear it. The winner with a perfect score of 120 points is Jasmine Williams. The applause was thunderous. Jasmine stood on shaking legs, barely believing what she had just heard. Perfect score. She had achieved a perfect score. She made her way to the stage in a daze, accepting the trophy and the oversized ceremonial check for $50,000. But more than the prize, more than the scholarship, what meant the most was the sight of her mother in the audience, tears streaming down her face, her hands pressed to her heart. After the ceremony, as people crowded around to offer congratulations, Mr. Harrison approached. He looked older than Jasmine remembered, but his eyes were warm. Congratulations, Jasmine, you've earned this. Thank you, Mr. Harrison, for everything, for finally believing in me. He nodded slowly. I learned something important from you, Jasmine. I learned that talent doesn't come with a pedigree. It doesn't require the right last name or the right zip code. It just is, and it's my job, every teacher's job, to recognize it wherever it appears. He paused, pulling an envelope from his jacket pocket. I've made some changes to how I evaluate students now. Anonymous initial assessments, blind grading where possible, more opportunities for students to demonstrate their abilities in multiple ways. You've changed how I teach. He handed her the envelope. This is a letter of recommendation for your college applications. I know you don't need it from me specifically, but I wanted you to have it anyway. It's the least I can do." Jasmine took the letter, feeling unexpected emotion well up. "Thank you, but Mr. Harrison's changes weren't universally welcomed." In the weeks following Jasmine's victory, whispers began to circulate through Prescott Academy. Some faculty members grumbled about lowered standards and reverse discrimination. A few parents complained that their children were being disadvantaged by the new blind grading policies. Mr. Harrison found himself defending his reforms in faculty meetings, facing opposition from colleagues who preferred the traditional ways. "Henry, you can't upend decades of proven methods because of one exceptional student," argued Mrs. Blackwell, the history department chair. "Our system has worked perfectly well for generations, has it?" Mr. Harrison challenged. "Or has it simply perpetuated existing inequalities while letting us believe we were identifying merit?" Jasmine Williams is proof that we've been missing talent, exceptional talent, because we let demographics blind us to ability. The debate was heated, with the faculty split, but Principal Martinez, to his credit, backed Mr. Harrison's reforms. "The data is clear," he said. "Since implementing blind initial assessments, we've identified 3 additional students with exceptional abilities who we had previously overlooked. Our job is to educate all students to their full potential, not just the ones who fit our preconceptions." The reforms stayed in place, though not without ongoing resistance. Meanwhile, Jasmine returned to Stanford to complete the final weeks of the summer program. Her competition victory had made her something of a celebrity among the other students, but it also brought new pressures. "You're going to publish a paper, right?" Sophie asked one evening. "With that kind of talent, you should definitely be publishing." "I don't know," Jasmine said. "I haven't even started college yet." "Exactly. If you publish now, you'll have a huge advantage for grad school applications. You should talk to Dr. Rodriguez about it." The expectation felt suffocating. Suddenly, everyone seemed to have opinions about what Jasmine should do next, what opportunities she should pursue, what path her career should take. The victory that should have felt liberating instead felt like it had locked her into a trajectory she hadn't chosen. During her final one-on-one meeting with Dr. Rodriguez, Jasmine confessed her feelings. "Everyone keeps telling me what I should do next: research, publications, competitions. It's like winning once means I have to keep winning forever." Dr. Rodriguez nodded thoughtfully. "Success can be its own trap. Once people see you as exceptional, they expect exceptional performance constantly. It's exhausting. So what do I do? You remember why you fell in love with mathematics in the first place. You do it because it brings you joy, not because it brings you recognition." Dr. Rodriguez smiled. "And you give yourself permission to be human, to struggle, to fail sometimes, to explore areas that interest you, even if they're not prestigious." She paused. "Jasmine, you have a gift. But you're also 17 years old. You don't have to have your entire career mapped out. Take time to explore, to learn, to discover what truly excites you. The pressure to constantly achieve, that's external. Don't let it steal your love of learning." The words were a relief, but Jasmine knew the pressure wouldn't disappear easily. That night, she sat in her dorm room and made a list, not of achievements or goals, but of the mathematical questions that genuinely fascinated her, the problems she wanted to explore simply because they were beautiful. It was a start. As senior year of high school began, Jasmine found herself navigating a strange new reality. College acceptance letters started arriving early. Harvard, MIT, Princeton, Caltech, Stanford, all offered full scholarships. All wanted her in their mathematics programs. The attention was overwhelming. Journalists requested interviews about the self-taught prodigy from a working-class background. Mathematics departments invited her to visit their campuses. Other students at Prescott, who had barely acknowledged her existence before, suddenly wanted to be her friend. "It's weird, isn't it?" Olivia said one day as they walked between classes. Olivia had been one of Jasmine's earliest skeptics, but had gradually become a genuine friend. "Everyone treating you differently now, when you're the same person you always were." "Very weird," Jasmine agreed. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry about how I acted when you first got here. I made assumptions about you based on stupid things like where you lived and what you wore. That wasn't fair. Thank you for saying that. I mean it. Watching you this year, seeing how hard you work, how much you love math, it made me realize I've been coasting on my parents' money and connections. You've actually earned everything you have. The conversation stayed with Jasmine. She realized that her journey wasn't just about her own success, it was about challenging the assumptions that people like Olivia had grown up with, about proving that talent and worth weren't determined by zip code or bank account. She chose Stanford, wanting to continue working with Dr. Rodriguez and to be part of the research community she had glimpsed during the summer. Her mother cried when she told her, though whether from joy or the impending separation, Jasmine couldn't quite tell. "My baby going to Stanford," her mother said, hugging her tightly. "Your grandmother would be so proud. I wish she could have seen this." "Oh honey, she sees it, I know she does." Her mother pulled back, holding Jasmine's face in her hands. "You've done something incredible, not just for yourself, but for every other kid out there who thinks their circumstances disqualify them from greatness. You've proven them wrong." Graduation day arrived, sunny and warm. As valedictorian, Jasmine stood at the podium, looking out at her classmates and their families. She thought about how far she had come, from the girl who tried to hide her talents to the young woman who was ready to share them with the world. "A year and a half ago," she began, her voice strong and clear, "I thought the best strategy for success was invisibility. I thought if I could just stay quiet, not draw attention, not stand out, I could survive. But I learned something important: surviving isn't the same as thriving. And we're not here just to survive, we're here to thrive, to grow, to become everything we're capable of being." She paused, her eyes finding her mother in the crowd, then Mr. Harrison, then Principal Martinez. "I also learned that potential exists everywhere, in every neighborhood, every income bracket, every background. It's not limited to those who have always had advantages. Sometimes it appears in the most unexpected places, in the quietest voices, in the students who come to class on the bus instead of in expensive cars. Our job, as students, as teachers, as human beings, is to recognize that potential wherever it appears, nurture it, celebrate it, and give it room to grow." The applause was loud and long, but for Jasmine, the real reward came later. She received a message from Maria, a freshman at Prescott, who had been inspired by Jasmine's story. "Thank you for showing me it's okay to be smart," Maria had written. "I've been hiding my grades because I didn't want people to think I was showing off. But after hearing you speak, I decided I'm done hiding. I'm going to be myself, no matter what anyone thinks, and I'm going to study mathematics, just like you." Jasmine smiled as she read the message, feeling the weight of her journey settle into something like peace. She had proven herself, not just to Mr. Harrison, or Prescott Academy, or the mathematics community, but to herself. She had taken her talent, nurtured it in isolation, and transformed it into something that could inspire others. But she also knew the journey was far from over. Stanford awaited, with new challenges and opportunities. There would be research to conduct, papers to publish, questions to explore. There would be moments of doubt and struggle, times when she felt inadequate or overwhelmed. Yet now she had tools she hadn't possessed before: a support network, mentors who believed in her, and most importantly, an unshakable belief in her own worth. She wasn't the scholarship student anymore, the outsider trying to prove she belonged. She was simply Jasmine Williams, mathematician, and that was enough.
Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.